Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Tim Lee. I'm a research analyst at Red Cloud Securities, and I'm delighted to host a Red Cloud webinar on gold exploration and development today. We will hear from Jason Bonson, President and CEO of Tempus Resources. During today's webinar, he will provide an overview and outlook. Then we will take questions. You can type your questions into the chat box at any time, and we will get to as many as we can. Before we kick things off, first we need to discuss the fine print. During this Tempus webinar, forward-looking statements may be made. I would direct listeners to the company's forward-looking statements disclosure outlined on page 2 of the Tempus corporate presentation, and that can be found on the company's website, tempusresources.com.au. For Red Cloud Securities, Inc., I would highlight that this webinar is for information purposes only. It should not be considered a solicitation or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. We note that this call does not consider the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigation and seek their own professional advice before investing. Please see our most recent research located on the Red Cloud website for specific disclosures pertaining to Tempus. So we have Tempus presenting today. The company has a portfolio of projects in British Columbia and Ecuador. The flagship is the Elizabeth Black Dome Gold Project in BC, where the company has been drilling high-grade veins in a past-producing mining camp. The company also has gold and copper exploration projects located near operating mines in Ecuador. With that, I now turn it over to Jason to update our audience on the company.
Thank you, Tim, and welcome everyone. And I think we're going to have a presentation up on the screen here in a moment that I can talk through. So Tempus is listed in Australia and on the venture in Canada. 135 million shares out. It's a little snapshot of the financials. I won't focus on that too much. Let's dive right into the project. So as Tim was mentioning, the key flagship project, Elizabeth Black Dome, it's in a fantastic location. It's about a couple hundred kilometers north of Whistler, or about 250 kilometers in total north of Vancouver, in quite an active sort of mining camp. We have other sort of companies, Talisker, Westhaven, Australian Blackstone Minerals, all within 50 kilometers of where we are. So very active. And our project here, Elizabeth Black Dome, it's effectively, as the name suggests, two separate projects which are co-joined with the mining leases. And this is the first time that these projects had been in joint ownership in one. And Black Dome was a previous producing mine. You see it at the top of the screen. And there's an existing mill. And this is key to the story, because this is really, we're an exploration play, but pushing the towards near-term production with the available infrastructure that we have. So we have a fully permitted 200-ton a day mill and associated tailings impoundment at Black Dome. It's about 30 kilometers north of Elizabeth. We're currently drilling at Elizabeth over the last 2 years. We will come back to look at the exploration upside for Black Dome as well. But just going to diving in a little bit closer, talking about the drilling. And as Tim mentioned, it's high grade veins. There's about 9 known veins on the property. When we just discovered a new vein last year, which is sort of the blue vein. So there's an historical resource on this property, about 200,000 ounces, 206,000 ounces, which is mostly associated with the southwest vein in the middle of this plan. It's the only one that had any previous drilling on it. And we've now, we're focusing on, we drilled southwest vein last year. We're focusing on primarily the developing the blue vein, where you see the green little drill diagrams there, sort of highlighting where we're drilling. We discovered that last year with an intersection of, I think it was 33 grams per ton over a little over a meter. So these veins are about 400 to 500 meters long. And with the sort of mill and the size of the mill, and we're currently doing a study on the restart of that mill. But let's look just briefly on how it looks in cross section here. These veins are about 150 meters apart, and there is some existing old workings portal that enters it at the lower and upper level. But this gives you an idea of the sort of concentration of these veins. And this is a mesothermal style deposit. We see a lot of parallels with Braylorn, which was mined down to about 2,000 meters. So that's a reference in the sort of model. But looking at some of the grades, just to give you an idea, these are some of the grades of the holes we've drilled. We've completed about 13,000 meters, about 53 holes since drilling began. We have another drilling about total of 30 holes this season. We've drilled 14 holes. We're still pending assays on all of them, including hole number 9, which we announced had a high grade or a visible gold section. So we should have that announcement in days, and then we'll have sort of continuous news flow, I think, over the next few months. There's about a turnaround time. It's about 4 weeks right now. So we're anticipating that announcement on those results, and then we'll have continual sort of results. But looking at, just to give you an idea of the sort of grades, we're looking at some of the significant intersections of the southwest vein. 30 grams over 4 meters, 50 grams over 1.5. This blue vein that we just discovered in last year, there's a 33 grams over 1 meter from the discovery hole, 13 over 2.7, including the higher grade zones. So it's extremely high grade and relatively close to surface. And so the focus is on developing the resource now, expanding the historical resource. We plan to have at the end of this year's drilling, which will have a total of about 18,000 meters of drilling or about 40, 50 holes that haven't been included in the previous resource. They'll be now included in an updated resource estimate that we plan to target December, January, after the drilling is complete. But concurrently to that, we're looking at, and here's a picture of the mill, the way it is right now. It's a fantastic piece of infrastructure. It ran for only 5 years, from 85 to 91. There was only 300,000 tons of ore through it, so it's in relatively good shape. We've had JDS and the Optimized Group having a look at the restart capital and operating costs associated with that mill. It's the existing circuit is a gravity and flotation circuit. We're also looking at the options to expand that, add a leaching back end to that, so we produce 100% gold on property. So this has, as we and that study is being done to a PEA level standard, and we should be releasing the results of that in the next coming weeks. But it's very encouraging and gives us some guidance in terms of the capital costs, which the restart is extremely attractive, and how many ounces of ore we need to press the trigger on a development scenario. So it's got elements of a production story with ticking some of these boxes, which are effectively pre-feasibility PEA level studies, and as we concurrently firm up the resource. So I think we're probably about the historic resource was about halfway to what we'd like to see as an initial starting resource for a small scale mine. Overall the project has larger potential as well. It's over 300 square kilometers, and so in addition to just where we're drilling at Elizabeth now, there's scope for something larger. But that's a bit of a snapshot on Black Dome Elizabeth. We'll be getting more news out on that soon. over the we also have 2 projects in Ecuador, which are in a fantastic neighborhood in southeastern Ecuador. Just looking at the map where they are. This is in a belt, the Caldera Condor. It's a belt of both copper porphyry and gold projects, large in scale. This is like within 20, 30 kilometers of us. It's Mirador. That's 25 million ton a year operation right now. We're right beside Fruta del Norte's or Lundin's Fruta del Norte gold mine and deposit, and that's adjacent to our project at Rio Zarza, which we think is a down thrust extension of Fruta del Norte. And we've done geophysics and soil sampling at Valle de Tigre, which shows strong sort of both structure with a strong east-west structure, which is predominant to the other deposits regionally, and a very good correlation with our soil geochemistry. We did about 600 soil samples, and we're seeing about a 3-kilometer anomaly there. So both these projects are earlier stage in the development of sort of drill targets, this one, and this is the other project in Ecuador, Rio Zarza, which here's Fruta del Norte. You can see at the top of that, and this is a potential extension of that, and that is also drill ready now as well. So Ecuador is a little bit different, earlier stage projects, but we have 2 drill ready projects. We may look at something strategically there, partner or something on that as we continue to focus primarily on Black Dome and Elizabeth in BC. So just in terms of just a snapshot of what we have and what we have coming, what the story is. It's really high grade gold exploration development, southern BC, great location. Near-term production potential with this integrated mill that are currently in process. Updated resource targeting the end of the year. And, in the short term, we haven't released any assays for the first 14 holes. We'll be doing about 30 holes in total, focused on both blue vein, southwest vein, and 2 additional veins there. And some upside with Ecuador. So you'll see the stock is suspended in Australia today, which typically means we're announcing a financing. Because we're listed in both markets, we have the capacity to tap either for sort of capital. We're doing a small financing there in Australia right now that'll be closed in the next couple of days. It continues to trade here under the various nuances of these cross-border rules, but so watch for news on that as well. There'll be an update on that sort of financing in the next couple of days. But that kind of Tim, that kind of takes me through the presentation. Happy to hand it over for questions. I've covered a lot of ground quite quickly, but if there's anybody wants any specifics on any of that, happy to discuss.
Great. Thank you, Jason, for a very informative presentation. We'll now start the Q&A portion of the webinar. A reminder to everyone on the line, you can type your questions into the chat box at any time. We already do have a few questions. What is the company's relationship with First Nations and other local groups in both BC and Ecuador?
Yes, well, we have currently in British Columbia initially, we have 3 exploration agreements in place with Ahoysen, Dog River, and now we're working on and Canoe Creek is another one, and now we're just working on a 4th one and have some meetings that are taking place today with the Chilcotin tribe. So some of these we have in our workforce on the site, we have 20 people on site. Half of those are from the local First Nations. So we really we look at that. It's a huge advantage for us to have a sort of workforce there and integrate into our teams. both all our environmental monitoring, water sampling work. We have First Nations environmental technicians working with us, and on the cultural monitoring as well, and geotech. So there's a variety of things that we work with various bands and in developing the workforce. So the relationships quite good. I was just up at site recently. It's everything is very good that way. In Ecuador, we're involved when we're doing sampling. It's very remote locations. We work with some of the local communities and have various community programs where we're working with them on either food awareness, very sort of community issues, really. Not so much in working on the sort of mining together, but we have support. So good relationships in both jurisdictions, and I think this is one of the most critical things to the development of any project, in any jurisdiction now, is to have these agreements and partnerships in place. So that's going well.
Great. And another question here, and you had briefly touched on it with regards to the projects in Ecuador, but maybe it would also apply to Elizabeth Black Dome. Would you look for companies to partner with on these projects, potentially JV or earn-in agreements, or are you looking to advance on a 100% basis?
Well, we're always open to ideas and what generates the most value for shareholders, I guess, and stakeholders in total. I didn't have that many slides on it, but Elizabeth Black Dome, as I mentioned, is very, very large. It's 300 square kilometers in total. And we've only just touched the area where we're drilling. At Elizabeth is a relatively small portion of the overall project. And based on the geophysics we did last year, we found that the overall porphyry intrusion that hosts these gold veins is much larger than previously thought. And there's a huge scope for doing additional work in terms of reconnaissance, exploration work, sampling that we want to do. We're adjacent to us is an American Barrick-owned project, copper porphyry, Poison Mountain. There's other porphyry sort of targets in the area. So, this project can certainly host something larger like that as well. So we're in parallel, we're mostly focused on the drilling, sort of intense period over the season. But we're also looking at, we've had expressions of interest from several groups wanting to have a look or do due diligence or understand the bigger picture. So that's some further upside that we want to develop further in terms of the regional, more greenfields opportunities within the license area.
Great. One general question here: are you able to work year-round at Elizabeth Black Dome, or are you limited to the summer months?
Well, during the exploration season, we've been getting in May to end of October. It's the project, the camp is at about 2,000 meters. We're typically drilling at 2,300 meters, and on what is an exposed part of the mountain. So in the winter, it is difficult to do surface operations like that. Once we're underway, the camp itself can certainly operate all year round. Once the mine is underway, this would be a small underground mine. Once the roads are open, it's easy to keep the operation open year round. We also have a permit for the underground drilling, utilizing an existing adit that we would utilize for exploration. That permit is taking some time. We're in discussions with the ministry now on just response to sort of questions. There's just a lot of backlog in the sort of system. But that is certainly something we would want to do in the future, because and that we could operate all year round, because it's the underground nature of it. And that would give us access to, maybe even once we're in production, to really start drilling out these deeper areas of the veins would be perfect aspect for that.
Great. And I think you had touched on this, but when would you plan to have an updated resource estimate for Elizabeth?
Well, we're pushing both for Elizabeth and Black Dome, because there is significant ounces at Black Dome as well. But the end of this year, so we're pushing to get all this drilling, it will be about 18,000 meters of drilling that isn't in the existing resource, or about 30 or 40 holes that isn't in the existing resource, and have that out by December, January. So about 6 months' time.
Okay, great. And obviously the consultants are evaluating currently, but do you have an idea of what equipment would be usable, or what would need to be replaced at the mill?
Well, we've had a good look at some of the equipment. There's some further, testing. We haven't had any power to it, obviously, and hasn't operated for a long time. And that's going to be the sort of key. But, things like the ball mills haven't changed at all. We would upgrade, and in our review that we've been doing, we've been looking at, specifically what items we would change. That's all built into the restart capital. So this study is taking it down to the level of getting quotes on the equipment, on the replacement equipment that we would install. And, as I mentioned, it's looking very attractive at this point. So a lot of it, we can use existing crushers, existing power plant. It's obviously a fantastic, just weatherproof facility that's there. We're doing some more internal surveying work and that on it. We're doing a 3D survey over the next month or so to really get a handle on the dimensions where everything is in terms of fitting a modified circuit. We'd be looking at going to Nelson concentrators. That's one thing that the previous operator of the company didn't have in place. We're thinking of it, and that increased sort of recovery. And, there's a lot of, on the back end of that now, there's a lot of smart technology in terms of batch systems for cyanidization, which are very environmentally friendly, and where it's all destroyed within that as well. That's something we can look at down the track. But in the meantime, it's looking very attractive, very low capital cost to restart the mill in its existing gravity and float concentrate configuration. And then we could use that to cash flow from that bootstrap, further enhancements to the circuit. But the mill's in good shape, and it was put away properly, is what I'm told. People inspecting it, it was all done properly. It's pretty straightforward. We've done the met work, or we've done a lot of review on the previous sort of met work and bench testing that show we're going to get total recoveries up to 95% with both gravity and concentrate, or other options as well. So it's amenable to, the mill is amenable to both Black Dome and Elizabeth ore sources. So if we develop a further resource at Black Dome, that just sweetens it. But we're going forward on the basis of the resource that Elizabeth is providing it. Is that my cue?
No, that's perfect.
Stop talking. Anyway, I think I've covered the question more than then some.
Great. And following up on that, obviously, you're in a position with the mill and kind of a past producing operation there. Would you look, I guess, strategically, thinking about the company, are you looking to evolve into a producer, or would you look to potentially sell? Obviously, it depends on things that might pop up, but would you look to potentially sell to a producer? Before
we're always opportunistic. What's going to generate the most value? I think this is starting to come together as a nice story, or a small scale production, and by small scale, thinking like 25,000 ounces a year. Now, given the high grades, and we'll see how the cash costs in that fall out, but I think it's very attractive that we'd be targeting a sort of 1 year payback on the sort of capital or less sort of scenario. Now, that's attractive in its own right. Is there an opportunity to be part of something bigger? And that's sure. That's one of the things I also like is, highlighted on the initial slide about the neighborhood. There's lots going on. There's other mills around. There's other deposits. It's going to make sense at some point to roll some of this up. Maybe there's bigger scale. Maybe that's, a major or somebody that starts looking at all these things. It becomes attractive. As well as the other potential for the project in terms of larger scale system. Is there an overall porphyry system that's driving this out here? There's Blackstone to the south of us is looking for both gold and copper porphyry. Barrick beside us, copper porphyry with Poison Mountain. So there's it's a very interesting project that we've just really touching on with this these initial gold veins, which if we keep finding more of them, even better. So yeah, so in terms of a deal at some point in the future or a partnership with somebody, or it's all open. We keep driving forward on our path here, but we're always open to opportunities.
Great, Jason. And looking at obviously the exploration targets and things and the veins that you're drilling currently, what can you tell us about the blue vein and how it kind of compares, how the mineralization compares in the blue vein to the other veins on the project?
Well, most of the drilling, as I mentioned, was on the southwest vein, and what we've seen on the southwest vein is there's two distinctive sort of ore shoots. What we're referring to as sort of southern and northern ore shoots, where a lot of the high grade is. We think we've both infill drilled a lot of that was drilled before and brought that up to a higher category. But what we and last year when we discovered this blue vein, just by drilling a hole back the other direction, this vein didn't outcrop previously, so it wasn't known. And we had, I think, 7 holes into it last year. The results of that, and it looks similar sort of structures that we may be seeing a couple of distinct sort of ore shoots developing in that, and similar structure. It's about 150 meters from the southwest vein. The thicknesses aren't quite as thick as we saw in the southwest vein at this point, but it's similar vertical structure. And in the little bit of drilling we did last year, we had 3 holes that graded over an ounce. That was quite encouraging over a short sort of total 80 meter sort of strike length of where we identified the high grade. So it looks quite similar in that way. So if we use that as a projection, in the southwest vein on the historical resource, there's about 150,000 ounces. And then we've added, another almost 10,000 meters of drilling to that southwest vein as well. Now, if we see something similar, it looks like similar strike length. We have identified it up to about 380 meters. I think it is the structure of the vein from some drilling last year of the blue vein. I'm hoping that's the sort of number we start to see another 150, 200,000 ounces develop there. We're going to drill the drilling this year. We'll take that from the little bit 80 meters we covered last year of strike out to about 300 or more. So that should give us, and all this is going to go into the new updated sort of resource. So, we'll see what how the numbers work. But I think previous resource was done at 1,000 ounce gold. We'd be looking at a sort of 3 gram cutoff, 3.5 gram cutoff. So we're in just discussions with that, with our resource geologists now. So we're gearing up to get all that drilling in and get an updated resource, and we'll see. It should be getting close to what we need. There'll be further infill drilling required, prior to mining it, but it has the hallmarks of something we could do a production story with quite quickly.
Great. And kind of just to review, obviously you've mentioned it here, but what news overall would we expect to have over the coming weeks and months here from Tempus?
Well, the next, I'm hoping any day, I call the assay lab daily, I can assure you, and say, where are my assays? And we have the first 3 holes, which was the first batch that went in, including the visible gold hole, number 9. And so we should have those out this week, I'm hoping. You don't know where they're starting to come in, and it's encouraging that they're taking a little bit longer sometimes because they have to do some additional test work. But and then we'll have a continual sort of string of assays. We've been taking every sort of 3 holes once a week. The core is going into the lab, so we should have a string of results coming from that. We've also now completed this JDS optimized group study on the mill, and so we're reviewing that and putting a release out that just describes the results of that study and the initial sort of estimates and how that looks, and then the resource estimate at the end of the year. So I think over the next 6 months we should have a steady flow of positive news releases, both on the drilling, some key sort of milestone events such as the resource, this initial study on the mill. Should be quite a busy time.
Great. All right. Well, I think that's all the questions that we have today. I would like to thank Jason Bonson from Tempus again for presenting today. And thank you everyone out there for tuning in. Just a reminder that Red Cloud Securities will be back Thursday afternoon when our webinar series continues with E3 Lithium presenting Thursday, July 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Tim, and everyone else. It's been a pleasure. Cheers.